Hours after Deadline Hollywood broke the scoop that Spider-Man would be yanked from the MCU, Sony released an official statement confirming this to be the case, while laying all blame squarely at Disney's feet. Is this a sign that the game, for lack of a better word, is not yet over? In this editorial, I will go through this statement, compare it with the original scoop, and give my take on who is really to blame, before exploring if Spider-Man might actually be better off at Sony, and whether or not a bigger game is being played here. If you like this video, then please help share it and leave a comment and a like. If you're new here and would like more updates as they become available, then hit subscribe and smash that bell. Sony issued a statement to The Hollywood Reporter saying that much of today's news about Spider-Man has mischaracterized recent discussions about Kevin Feige's involvement in the franchise. We are disappointed, but respect Disney's decision not to have him continue as a lead producer for our next live-action Spider-Man film. We hope this might change in the future, but understand that the many new responsibility that Disney has given him, including all their newly added Marvel properties, do not allow time for him to work on an IP they do not own. Kevin is terrific, and we are grateful for his help and guidance, and appreciate the path he has helped put us on, which we will continue. So, in other words, Sony are trying to spin this like Disney decided that Kevin Feige is just too busy with all the IPs that Marvel owns all the rights to. So he simply didn't have the time to take on Spider-Man as well, and therefore Disney ended the rights-sharing deal, much to Sony's disappointment. Fans of Spider-Man shouldn't worry though. Sony got your back, and will continue the work that Feige started, and if you believe any of that, then I've got a luxury residence in picturesque Norway to sell you. With a stunning view of the fjords and everything, the Mar-a-Lago ain't got nothing on this. Now this statement, which was published in The Hollywood Reporter, becomes extra pathetic when you consider that it is not only refuted by the Deadline Hollywood piece preceding it, but by The Hollywood Reporter's own write-up of the story as well. So, what is really going on here? Who is to blame? Deadline Hollywood reported that contrary to what was previously told to the public, Marvel had a 5% stake in Sony Spider-Man movies, a stake that Disney wanted to increase to 50% for the renewed deal. So this is all about money and control. In the aftermath of Sony's statement to The Hollywood Reporter, in which they claim Disney walked out on them since Feige is so busy, Deadline Hollywood stood their ground and doubled down, even labeling Sony's statement to The Hollywood Reporter as spin. So kudos to Mike Fleming. He stood up for journalism on this one. So let's assume the Deadline Hollywood scoop is correct. Sony were the ones that walked away from talks because Marvel demanded their stake be increased to 50%. Not just on Spider-Man solo movies, but on all Spider-Man spin-off movies, like Venom sequels, or what we like to call the Venomverse. That would essentially give Marvel full creative control, and make the Venomverse an official sanctioned part of the MCU. So much for Feige having too much on his plate, like Sony tried to spin it. For us fans, this would have been pretty sweet. Not for Sony though. Giving up creative control over the entire Venomverse might be more than they're willing to concede, as that would, for all intents and purposes, amount to giving Spider-Man back to the MCU wholesale, in return for 50% of the earnings on the movies distributed by Sony, while Marvel could presumably use all of Sony's characters in their movies, without Sony seeing a dime for them. While that would be pretty awesome for both Marvel and for fans alike, it would be something of a bitter pill to swallow for Sony. In the initial scoop, which I maintain came from Sony, it said that it is understandable that the fiscally shrewd Rothman would balk at giving up half of Sony's biggest franchise to Marvel. After all, Marvel already owns the merchandising on Spider-Man. Does the mouse really need half of the movie universe also, the greedy bastard? I added that last bit. It wasn't in the original piece, but I feel that's kind of what Sony was thinking. The original piece went on to say that Sony so far has decided that as valuable as Feige is, Disney is asking too high a price. There are a couple of things to keep in mind here. First of all, it's a bit surprising that Disney are the ones playing hardball, because Sony are the ones that ultimately decide if a deal is made or not. Because as long as Sony upholds the terms, the Spider-Man movie license is theirs, fair and square. They paid for the movie rights and helped Marvel avoid bankruptcy in the process. On that note, Marvel has the merchandising rights because they bought them from Sony, also fair and square. And they contributed towards saving Sony Pictures from bankruptcy by doing that. So let's not get into who is entitled to how much and what here, as everyone has the legal right to what they have. Instead, let's look at the argument from each party's point of view. From Disney and Marvel's point of view, Sony had completely mauled Spider-Man on film before they came in to save the brand. It was Marvel overseeing production and adding their MCU magic that once again made Spider-Man Sony's biggest brand. And Far From Home, Sony's biggest movie ever. Marvel doesn't really like this Venomverse thing, that's Sony mucking with their brand outside of Marvel's control. They want it all to be part of the MCU, and for that, they need to have control. From Sony's point of view, however, giving up half of the profits and all of the creative control over their biggest franchise is too steep a price to pay, even for continued access to the MCU. Besides, Marvel fixed the Spider-Man brand for them, and following the success of Venom, if need be, they have a backup universe to slip Spider-Man into. On top of that, with both Iron Man and Captain America done for, Marvel should want to give in a lot just to keep Spider-Man in the MCU. So both have their reasons for playing hardball. However, this seems like a case where everyone has much more to gain by moving forward with some kind of deal than without. Marvel really could use Spider-Man's continued presence in the MCU, because they have lost their heavy hitters. Who is going to replace them? Captain Marvel? Likewise, the Spider-Man franchise is in a great state right now, but only because of Marvel's help and the MCU connection. Without that, how long until Sony Spider-Man crashes and burns again? There are many out there who don't like Disney, and therefore are happy to see Spider-Man taken away from them for that reason. That's fine, I have no intention of changing your mind towards Disney one way or the other. But those of you who are of the opinion that Spider-Man will somehow be better served under Sony, well, let's just say you might be in for a disappointment. Many like to point to Spider-Man 2 as proof of how good Spider-Man movies Sony can make, but Sony didn't make Spider-Man 2. No, they stayed away while Sam Raimi made the best movie he possibly could for them. Sony didn't start getting involved behind the scenes until Spider-Man 3, which didn't work out so well. And both amazing Spider-Man movies are pure Sony corporate productions. If you like them, more power to you, but they didn't do the brand any favors. Without Marvel and without Kevin Feige, it will be Amy Pascal and Tom Rothman who run the Spider-Man franchise. Amy Pascal was great at greenlighting Seth Rogen movies, but her track record with overseeing comic book movies that weren't overseen by Kevin Feige as well is a pretty abysmal one. It was, after all, on her watch that Sony drove the Spider-Man franchise into the ground in the first place. Likewise, Tom Rothman is a great producer where making drama and Oscar bait is concerned. No one can take that away from him. But where comic book movies are concerned, he has the reverse Midas touch. David Benioff may have written the Wolverine origin script that saw Deadpool's mouth soon shut, but Tom Rothman is the guy who told him to do it. Also, some are worried about the MCU going woke in Phase 4 and taking Spider-Man along for the ride. I'm not saying that wouldn't happen, but if you think Spider-Man won't go woke under Sony, well then you might be in for a surprise. You see, Amy Pascal is, and this is not a phrase I like to use, but from what I've been told, the shorthand that best describes her values and personal politics is card-carrying SJW. Much of the quote-unquote wokeness in Homecoming and Far From Home were her contributions. Lest we forget, she was the one who killed Ivan Reitman's Ghostbusters 3 in favor of Paul Feig's female-centric Ghostbusters remake. And before that, she wanted Paul Feig to make a female-centric Spider-Man spin-off movie set within the Amazing Spider-Man universe. You know, the one which she helped crash and burn. That female-centric movie, by the way, had the working title Glass Ceiling, and it is still on the docket. The in-development Silver Sable and Black Cat movie is the further evolution of it. With Amy Pascal completely replacing Kevin Feige, Spider-Man probably won't go any less woke. If anything, he may even go more woke under Sony than he would have under Disney. One thing that should not be ignored here is that this is not a done deal. In both the initial Deadline Hollywood scoop, which I maintain was leaked from Sony, and in Sony's subsequent statement to The Hollywood Reporter, the door is left open to future negotiations. Reportedly, Sony offered Marvel to continue the current deal, but increased the split from 95-5 to 70-30. Marvel rejected that, because they aren't just interested in money, they want the entire Spider-Man universe back, period. That's when Sony walked. I think there's a good chance that what Sony is doing here is playing hardball. They know that while Disney wants the entire Venomverse, they don't want to lose Spider-Man. They also know Disney already is facing negative PR over Fox being a money loser, Bloomberg pointing out the failure of Star Wars, and the most recent allegations of Disney cooking the books. In this environment, confidence in the MCU taking a hit because Disney lost Spider-Man because they walked out of talks with Sony, which is the narrative they're trying to put out there, is the last thing Disney needs right about now. But it doesn't have to be that way. All Disney have to do is accept the current offer of a 70-30 split. Maybe expand that to the Venomverse as well, maybe some other way of meeting each other in the middle. Because while Disney wants it all, it would appear that even Sony prefers Spider-Man to stay in the MCU. A deal could still happen here. Do you think the headlines we're seeing might be Sony's way of playing hardball? Is it possible for an agreement to be reached? Or will Spider-Man be joining the Venomverse before long? Let me know in the comments.
Before you go, check out these other videos that may interest you, and our sister channel Midnight's Edge After Dark for more live shows and more laid-back content.